Welcome to this week's Horses A to Z podcast. My name is Nicole Lorig, and today we are joined once again with the State 4-H Equine Extension Specialist, Dr. Tim Cole, and Equine Extension Associate, Dwayne Stutzman, who will be providing updates on the upcoming edition of the Uniform Rules for 4-H horse shows. For those listening who do not know what it is, what can you tell them, Dr. Cole?
Sure. In a 4-H horse program as large as Ohio's, consistency of rules is really important. The Uniform Rules for 4-H horse shows is a manual that includes rules and guidelines for the many different aspects of our 4-H horse shows, from judges' requirements, ownership and leasing guidelines, and scoring systems, to tack and equipment requirements, as well as class guidelines.
Where can you find a copy of the Uniform Rules?
Copies can be purchased through your local extension office, or they can be purchased online at extensionpubs.osu.edu. We also have a link to the site on our 4-H horse program website, horse.osu.edu.
And since there's a new edition coming out for 2021, how often does it get updated?
The entire rulebook is evaluated every 3 years by our State 4-H Horse Advisory Committee and State 4-H Judges Committee. Modifications are made to adapt to changes that might include some new divisions for our 4-H members. For example, in the past few revisions, we added a small equine division and more recently a ranch horse division, which are very popular throughout the state.
It certainly sounds like there's a lot of information in this rulebook.
There is. We try to keep it as organized and user-friendly as possible, and each section is color-coordinated with its own tab for ease of access.
So Dwayne, tell me a little about what changes we can expect to see for 2021.
Absolutely. So some of the most prominent changes that are coming are being made to the showmanship, horsemanship, and equitation divisions. Those score sheets for all pattern classes have been available online at horse.osu.edu, and many have the scoring systems included right on the score sheet itself, meaning the penalties are listed at the top of the score sheet that are applicable to that particular class. And the idea is that the judges are getting additional training on utilizing these score sheets. First, we started off with doing that with PAS, but we've sort of transitioned in the past year of providing those score sheets for all classes, and with the hopes that judges will use them in all 4-H pattern classes and make the judging more consistent and hopefully also more complacent for the exhibitors, so the exhibitors can see how they scored in that particular class. Now, if the judges choose to post their score sheets, then the exhibitors can see how exactly they did, and it's also very advantageous to use as a judge to be able to explain to a 4-H member how they might improve versus asking the judge at the end of a long day, try and remember what little Jimmy did in the first class of the day can be hard, especially if a judge has been on their feet for a very long time.
And how are these classes scored?
So traditionally on the old scoring system for showmanship, it was 60% on the pattern, 40% on tack and appearance of the horse and exhibitor, and that included braiding and grooming and all of that good stuff. Horsemanship and equitation was 70% on the pattern, 20% on the rail, 10% on appointments. But these new score sheets have been slightly modified to match the updates that we've made to the 2021 rulebook, where all of these classes now are scored on a 0 to infinity basis, and a 70 is considered to be average or correct. So there's been a major overhaul to what a minor, major, and severe fault is as well. The Judges Committee has split those penalties out, and you can already see some of them listed out on the current score sheets that are posted on the website. There's not many changes there. Just the slight format of the score sheet itself is going to change, because in pattern classes you have an obstacle score and a maneuver score, and the obstacle score is if you receive a penalty, and again those penalties are listed at the top of most of those score sheets, and the maneuver score in 4-H is for the judge to evaluate how they thought that particular maneuver stacked up, and those scores can range from a -3 to a +3, which a -3 is extremely poor, -2 is very poor, -1 is poor, a 0 is correct. So getting a 0 is not a bad thing in this case. Getting a 0 in this case means it was done correctly. Wasn't great, but it wasn't poor either. +1 is good, +1 is very good, and I'm sorry, a +1 is good, +2 is very good, and +3 is excellent. So, and judges may break those down also into half-point increments if they so choose to, especially if they're judging a bigger show and they need to be able to split out their scores. And then all of those scores are added together or are subtracted from that average score of a 70, and then it's added to a form and effectiveness score, and that form and effectiveness score is going to range from 0 to 5, and then you'll get your final score, and that sort of it takes place of that previous tack and appearance of the horse and handler, that kind of thing. And what the form and effectiveness score does is it allows the judge to add to the final pattern score. It's an opportunity to credit an exhibitor really for just the overall impression of the exhibitor's poise and presence, attitude, presentation, things like that. So essentially it's including, again, all the grooming, tack, appearance of the exhibitor, all of those things. So now rules for the actual appearance of the exhibitor, the horse, the tack have not changed. Just the format of the scorecard is what we're talking about in this instance.
Are there any new divisions of pattern classes being added to this revision?
The ranch classes have been extremely popular for the past several years, so we are expanding the ranch horse division to add ranch showmanship and horsemanship. The guidelines are very similar to Western showmanship and horsemanship, but do differ a little bit. For example, in ranch horsemanship, riders can post or hold the horn at the extended trot, since the ranch horses tend to be more forward-moving.
I know that the reining and Western riding classes also have many maneuvers and potential penalties. How does a judge keep them all straight?
Lots of flashcards, but in this revision, I'm very excited to say that we have added scoring diagrams for the Western riding and the reining classes, where hopefully it'll be easier for the judges and the exhibitors to know where penalties might incur. For example, when you don't switch a lead after a rollback and going around the arena, or continually being out of lead in circles, or for Western riding, what penalty is associated with being out of lead in the next set of cones, that kind of thing. So it's going to provide a visual reference that should really help everyone understand all the way around.
I really like the speed classes. Are there any changes to the Gymkhana section?
Some of the wording has been updated to clarify what results in a no time versus the DQ. In speed and control, clarification was added so that if a horse enters or exits the box anywhere other than the designated opening, they will receive a no time for that run. There's always been some confusion with this, so hopefully that will make more sense to everyone.
Well, it definitely sounds like there are some changes to look out for. Are there any other major updates?
In the hunter over fences section, some of the fence heights have been revised. In intermediate equitation over fences and low hunters, medium ponies will show at 2.3, and the large ponies and horses will show at 2.6. In the advanced equitation over fences and regular working hunter classes, medium ponies will show at 2.6, while large ponies and horses will show at 2.9. An updated list of causes for elimination has also been added.
Are there any changes to the scoring for hunters?
Yes, particularly in the hunter over fences, a horse now that commits one refusal cannot receive a score higher than a 49. So they are being more heavily penalized, essentially. And some other major faults like hind knockdowns, trotting on course, cross cantering, things like that for the first offense is going to drop that rider down to the 50 to 59 range.
Well, knowing is half the battle, right?
Exactly. So, since this edition has so many revisions, we highly recommend everyone gets a copy when it's available later this fall and read through it, become knowledgeable of all those updates that are made. They hopefully will all be highlighted like we've seen in previous editions.
A large portion of the Judges Clinic in December and advisor training in January will be devoted to addressing some of these changes more in depth.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much, Dwayne and Dr. Cole, for sharing with all of us about these changes that the Ohio 4-H Horse members will see next year. Do you have a topic you would like to see addressed in this podcast? Please email us at horsesatozpodcast@gmail.com with your requests.